What up, African World? It's Home Team here, and welcome back to another video of African history, culture, and worldview. And welcome back to my series, A Closer Look. Today, we'll be taking a closer look at Cape Verdeans. By supporting this channel on Patreon, you're helping in the creation of these videos and supporting this content. If you like access to full courses and sources, or you simply want to show your support, you may do so by clicking the Patreon link in the description box below. The Cape Verde Islands are a set of islands that lie 535 miles off the coast of West Africa. The islands are divided into two main groups, referred to by their position with the winds. The official language of Cape Verde is Portuguese, but Creole, a mixture of Portuguese and African dialects, is a national vernacular. Most Cape Verdeans are Catholics, as it's the most widely practiced religion on all the islands. The largest Cape Verdean diasporic communities have gathered mainly in the northeastern United States, as well as in Portugal, Brazil, Senegal, and Holland. Little is known about the original inhabitants of Cape Verde. Scholars have no generally agreed upon date or identity of the first inhabitants of the islands. Some even suggest that the islands were completely uninhabited, but we do not know for sure. Even though the Portuguese settled the island in 1462, creating the foundation of the social and governmental infrastructure, the islands had already been explored by various African ethnic groups from the Guinea coast. Though visited by West African peoples, they never seemed interested in colonizing it. Therefore, Diego Gomez is largely given that credit. The Portuguese used the islands as a refueling station for slave ships, and by 1466, with the establishment of plantations, the need for cheap labor was fulfilled largely by enslaved Africans from Guinea-Bissau. However, the majority of the enslaved Africans came through Cape Verde in transit to the Americas. The islands were first divided between several Portuguese feudal lords who established plantations and supervised the slave labor. The social division of Cape Verdean society based on the Portuguese feudal model was clear from the beginning. White landowners occupied the top of the social pyramid. Mulattoes and a few liberated Africans were in between, and enslaved African laborers were at the very bottom. The island of Santiago was used as a slave post, and slave labor was generally used in agricultural cultivation and production of sugarcane, vineyards, maize, guinea rice, and cotton, as well as in the salt mines. Over time, a large Creole population of mixed African and European descended people began to emerge, eventually becoming about 70% of the overall population. The remainder of the population consisted of Africans and about 2% Europeans. Cape Verdeans have maintained a recognizable and distinct culture on the islands and throughout the diaspora, mainly through the cultural markers of music, dance, food, and folklore, which have very clear African and Portuguese roots. The influence of African culture remains most visible on Santiago. There are four main musical genres: Morna, Coladerias, Funana, and Butuco. Morna and Coladerias have very strong Portuguese influence, while Funana and Butuco, accompanied by rhymes of drums and a fast tempo, have distinct African origins. Although Morna has very vague origins, it's characterized by melancholy love songs, expressing sentiments of heartache, loneliness, and the hardships inflicted by the natural conditions of the island. The internationalization or globalization of Cape Verdean music, most specifically the Morna, has resulted largely from the fame of Cesaria Evora, a very celebrated Cape Verdean singer. In addition to music, Cape Verdeans have also produced folklore and literature, which has been central to the preservation of oral and folkloric traditions. Literature and poetry were used to construct the identity of Cape Verdeans. The first recorded written art emerged around 1866. Many of the early Cape Verdean intellectuals and poets found inspiration in Portuguese nationalism. Poet Eugenio Tavares printed the first piece of creative writing on the island in 1916 in two short volumes of classical love poetry. Written in the traditional Morna style, the work was overtly critical of Portuguese occupation of the island. One of the latest trends in literature is Cape Verdean nationalism and pride in Cape Verde's African ancestry. Toward the end of the 19th century, following the official eradication of slavery and the devastation of severe droughts, Large numbers of Cape Verdeans left the islands to work in New England's cranberry and whaling industries. In 1951, in an attempt to quell the rising nationalism, Portugal changed Cape Verde's status from a colony to an overseas province. In 1956, a nationalist movement, the African Party for the Independence of Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde, formed the basis of the independence movement in both countries. Led by revolutionary political theorist Amilcar Cabral, the movement struggled to overthrow Portuguese colonialism. A priority of the independence mobilization period was to intervene in colonialism's repressive and deliberate erasure of African culture and restore the historic bond between the two colonies of Cape Verde and Guinea-Bissau. Cabral stressed the importance of maintaining and reclaiming the native culture, particularly its element of resistance to foreign domination. He firmly believed in the inalienable right of every people to have their own history. Cape Verde and Guinea-Bissau are linked through a common culture, language, and history, and have very strong historical ties. Amilcar is perhaps the most celebrated historical figure in Cape Verdean history and was certainly one of the most distinguished Cape Verdean anti-colonial leaders. Well, I'm all out, guys. If you like these videos and want to help in its continued production, please consider supporting the home team on patreon.com. The link is in the description box below. Know thyself. Remember your ancestors. Peace.